Teachers have been on strike for the past 4 weeks. Their demands that the government honors the 50 to 60% pay increase awarded to them by the Labour Relations Court. The government, on the other hand, has maintained that the pay award was unsustainable and that it was impossible to implement. While much has been said with accusations and counter-accusations flying all over, Kenya's fortune keeps dwindling as a middle-income economy, with a never-ballooning wage bill being the major headache. Even after President Uhuru Kenyatta launched a conversation on how to cut on the wage bill, nothing much has been achieved as the clamour for more salaries continues. University lecturers, doctors and nurses have also been on the streets, all aiming at one thing: salary increment, which has been termed as putting a strain on Kenya's development agenda. For economic analysts Dr. Walter Ongeti and Vincent Kimosop, the current wage bill, which is 52% of all revenues earned and is not in line with other countries with an economy of our size, a move that is unacceptable.
Basically, what happens in terms of salaries and salary increment is that there is a relationship between arbitrary increment in salaries with inflation and also unemployment. Let me just ponder on that issue. That if you increase, or if employees keep demanding for salary increments in a holistic perspective, then the employer normally has, if he grants that through whichever means, through the courts or through collective bargaining agreement or whatever model, if the employer continuously grants, if you're talking about a private sector employer, then what happens essentially is that the employer has a higher wage bill. When they have a higher wage bill and their production is not matching the wage bill, then what ideally happens is that they are forced to lay off the employees, which leads to unemployment.
We have to address so much focus on public expenditure and making that fiscally sustainable. Too much consumption at times, particularly ostentatious consumption, is not very good for an economy like what we have here. And the truth of the matter is that teachers deserve a wage increase. The reality is that this is not the right time.
According to the two, time is ripe for Kenyans to have an honest conversation on the wage bill, and particularly on the best ways to lower the recurrent expenditure to margins of 35%.
Step in the right direction, because this is the first time that the country is discussing an issue. And the issue is the wage bill. So it tells you that the country is growing and becoming of age, where an issue like the wage bill, which is not a sectarian or a party, it's a sectoral issue.
Honesty lacks in some quarters, that we have now turned this into some murky political games, you know. Even those who are supposed to be offering alternative suggestions and advice are now bringing in sarcasm, insults and so forth. You know that there's no economics around those sarcasms. There's no economics. This was a purely economics argument, purely a financial argument that would have been left to analysts. How do rallies sort out such things?
Of the 1.1 trillion shillings collected in revenue last year, 568 billion shillings paid wages, and to break it down, 1.5% of Kenyans consumed 52% of total revenue, which also means that debt, maintenance and essential public services were paid for out of the remaining 48%. Dr. Ongeti opines that the continued clamour for higher salaries against the backdrop of an economy that is not doing so well will cripple the country and might finally spill to the private sector.
Even for a company, if you want to be sustainable and you are a private sector company or a public sector organization, you can't run a wage bill you can't use 50% of your income to pay salaries. You want to cap it at just about 28%. If you're going to 30%, then that makes sense. But then what normally would happen is that if we are using everything that you are earning or you are generating as a country into paying salaries and also recurrent expenditure, then you are left with very little to do development expenditure.
Kimosop further faulted decisions that have been made by courts that have a direct bearing on socio-economic aspects of Kenyans.
I think it's high time even our courts consider having fiscal analysts and economists in their decisions, because we have courts that are making legal determinations, and at times determinations also on socio-economic issues that have ramifications, for example, in the budget process. The budget process is already, it's a dynamic process with already preset dates. So if you award a salary to teachers or to any other cadres within the public service when the budget has already been passed, that has ramifications. So
moving forward, the two want attention focused on productivity that would lead to more resource generation for a better pay. John Jacob Curia for Channel 1.